What's going on, my fellow warriors, and welcome to another episode of my analysis series, The Real Koei Warrior. In the last episode, I talked about the debatably strongest Chinese warrior of that area, Lu Bu. This time around, I'm going to talk about one of the warriors who actually stood up to Lu Bu's power and was considered a talented yet brash warrior during the Three Kingdoms era, one of the famous three brothers, as well as a member of the Five Tiger Generals, Zhang Fei of Yan. Courtesy name Yi De, Zhang Fei was a warrior who lived from the late times of the Eastern Han Dynasty all the way to the early lifespan of the Three Kingdoms era, who had a grand zest for life and was a heavy lover of all things alcoholic. Through his entire military career, he served under his sworn brother Liu Bei alongside fellow sworn brother Guan Yu, back when the three of them met in Luosong village. Zhang Fei used his famed serpent spear to take down any that stood in his sworn brother's way, and would literally do anything for Liu Bei's ambition and goals. Once the land of Shu was instituted at the land of Chengdu, Zhang Fei, along with Guan Yu, Zhao Yun, Ma Chao, and Huang Zhang, became one of the fearsome Five Tiger Generals of Shu and have taken part in many campaigns against their rival kingdom of Wei, most notably the Han-Zhang campaign. However, most of his accomplishments were just before the creation of the Three Kingdoms, being his assistance during the Chebi campaign, Yi Province campaign, and his most famous last stand on the Chengban Bridge, where Zhang Fei single-handedly held back Wei soldiers to help Liu Bei escape to the lands of Wu. Being originally from the Zhuo Commandery, Zhang Fei spent some time roaming the land for unknown reasons. Some say he was looking for jobs that would require his strength, but some say he was also searching for a worthy lord to serve. Whatever the reasons may be, he ended up in Luosong village, where he met Guan Yu and Liu Bei. While Zhang Fei was visiting the village, it came under attack by the peasant rebels known as the Yellow Turbans, under the leadership of a lesser warrior named Chang Yuanji. With Zhang Fei, Guan Yu, and Liu Bei being the village's only defenders, their teamwork had slain Chang Yuanji and pushed back the pillaging Yellow Turbans. Impressed with the two's strength, as well as vice versa, Zhang Fei agreed to become sworn brothers with Liu Bei and Guan Yu, as Zhang Fei was dubbed the Little Brother, out of respect for Liu Bei to be the eldest, despite Zhang Fei being older. From here on, the three brothers took part in the campaign against the Yellow Turbans as part of the volunteer forces. Having been in many battles against the Zhang brothers during the Yellow Turban campaign, Zhang Fei and his brothers were able to gain enough reputation that allowed Liu Bei to obtain the land of Pingyuan after the defeat of Yellow Turban leader Zhang Jiao. With his new position, Liu Bei hired Zhang Fei alongside Guan Yu as his majors. As a major in Pingyuan, Zhang Fei and his brothers took part in many more battles during the anti-Dongzhuo alliance, but didn't exactly perform any notable accomplishments outside of fictional standpoints from the Romance of the Three Kingdoms novel. After the defeat of Dongzhuo and the other warlords returned to their lands, it wasn't long until wars broke out among said warlords, each wanting to fulfill their own ambitions. Having been impressed by Liu Bei's governance as Pingyuan's chancellor, the lord of Zhu province Cao Qian decided to allow Liu Bei to inherit his land, feeling Liu Bei's rule is what the people wanted as well as heavily needed. It wasn't long until Lu Bu found himself under Liu Bei's protection in Shu, and fellow warlord Yuan Shu set its sights on conquering Liu Bei's new land. Wanting to combat against the encroaching forces from Yuan Shu, Liu Bei took Guan Yu with him and left Zhang Fei in charge of Xiapi, a task that Zhang Fei wasn't too happy with, but still accepted it since it was Liu Bei's wishes. While he was watching Xiapi, Zhang Fei began to heavily drink out of boredom, and because of unknown altercations, wanted the death of an officer, Cao Bao, who originally served Cao Qian. Out of reasonable fear for the drunken Zhang Fei, Cao Bao ran for the aid of fellow officer Lu Bu, who took up arms and claimed Xiapi Castle from Zhang Fei, who fled in shame back to Liu Bei. After begging for forgiveness from his sworn brother, Zhang Fei and the others eventually surrendered to Lu Bu, where tensions slowly increased to the point that Liu Bei sought aid from Cao Cao. The combined forces retook Xiapi from Lu Bu and returned it to Liu Bei, but even that didn't last long, as after the defeat of Yuan Shu, Cao Cao proceeded to claim Zhu province, leaving Zhang Fei to wander once again with Liu Bei, but this time with Guan Yu missing after Cao Cao's occupation. After having left the lands of Shu province, Zhang Fei followed Liu Bei under the leadership of Yuan Shao, before the brothers eventually left that army too after Yuan Shao's defeat at Guandu. Using the excuse to recruit forces in Runan to leave Yuan Shao's eyes, Zhang Fei and Liu Bei reunited with Guan Yu and retreated to the lands of Jing province, where it was under the control of warlord Liu Biao, a distant relative of Liu Bei, whom allowed Liu Bei control of the lands of Xinyi, the brothers now having a new land once again. While in Xinyi, Zhang Fei aided Liu Bei in many defenses against Cao Cao's armies, specifically in the battles against Cao Ren near Xinyi under the guidance of strategist Zhu Shu, and against Xiahou Dun at Bo Wang Po, where under the guidance of strategist Zhuge Liang, Zhang Fei set fire to Xiahou Dun's camp. But with the ferocity of Cao Cao's attacks and the passing of Liu Biao, Zhang Fei left alongside Liu Bei and the people of Jing and retreated through Changban to the lands of Wu as per Zhuge Liang's orders. It was at the Changban Bridge where Zhang Fei performed his most famous accomplishment. In order to allow Liu Bei to escape to Wu, Zhang Fei destroyed the Changban Bridge before facing Cao Cao's forces and brandished his spear threateningly.
来啊！现在该轮到我阉人张飞来痛打你们这些家伙了。
Too afraid to face him, as well as believing Zhang Fei to have a large group of soldiers in waiting, Cao Cao's men retreated back to their camp, with Zhang Fei allowing Liu Bei to escape and make an alliance with Sun Quan of Wu. There, they performed the famed fire attack at the Cherbi River, dealing a heavy blow to Cao Cao. After Cherbi, Liu Bei and his men wasted no time in pacifying the lands of Jing, taking the Nan, Changsha, Gong'an, and Yidu provinces. The last of the lands listed, Zhang Fei was appointed as the administrator of, before being moved over to the lands of Nan. During their times in Jing, Zhang Fei, along with fellow officer Zhao Yun, had to actually stop a kidnapping from Liu Bei's then wife, Sun Shengzheng, who was planning on returning to Wu with Liu Bei's son and heir, Liu Shan, while Liu Bei, along with Zhuge Liang, planned the foundation for the creation of Liu Bei's very own kingdom. With leaving the defense of Jing now to Guan Yu, Zhang Fei accompanied Liu Bei and the rest of their forces to take the lands of Yi from the current warlord Liu Zhang, who was rather blissful to the current times of war and deemed unfit by the people to lead them. During the campaign, Zhang Fei was tasked with the siege of Jiangzhou, which was defended by Liu Zhang's veteran general Yan Yan. After having defeated the captured Yan Yan, Zhang Fei was impressed by the warrior's courage in the face of death and possible execution, eventually releasing Yan Yan to be treated as an honored guest in Liu Bei's army. After taking Jiangzhou, Zhang Fei rendezvoused with the rest of Liu Bei's forces before annexing Liu Zhang out of his position and claiming the lands of Yi for his sworn brother, finally allowing Liu Bei to gain his own kingdom, the Kingdom of Shu, with Zhang Fei being named the administrator of Baxi County. But even with their kingdom now claimed, Liu Bei's forces was not yet done, as they now turned their attention to the lands of Han Zhang, now under the control of Cao Cao, who defeated Han Zhang's warlord Zhang Lu. Leaving the land in control of Xiahou Yuan and Zhang He, the latter led his forces to attack Baxi County, currently under Zhang Fei's control. With Baxi under siege for 50 days, Zhang Fei led a troop of 10,000 men to an alternate route and attacked Zhang He's forces in a pincer maneuver. Succeeding in his plan, Zhang Fei beat back the fleeing Zhang He as Liu Bei's forces successfully slain Xiahou Yuan and took the lands of Jing. Their lands now stronger and under a great foundation, the land of the Three Kingdoms was finally at its pinnacle, where now the greatest warriors of its early times finally began to fall. In 219, Zhang Fei's sworn brother Guan Yu was slain at the Battle of Fan Castle by an allied attack from both Wei and Wu. Enraged by this betrayal, Zhang Fei prepared his forces for when Liu Bei would give the attack. It was here that Zhang Fei became flippant and aggressive with his officers under his command. His actions got so out of hand that Zhang Fei would later be assassinated by these same officers during a banquet that was held in the Summer Palace. With his blood on their hands, Zhang Fei's men fled from the lands of Shu to Wu, as Liu Bei now had to cope with the loss of both of his sworn brothers. In Dynasty Warriors, Zhang Fei is portrayed as a brash and cocky warrior who can definitely back up his claims, but always gets a bit full of himself to the point that Guan Yu and Liu Bei usually need to rein him in and calm him down. In actual history, Zhang Fei was a skilled military leader under Liu Bei's command, who definitely made some blunders due to his own short-sightedness because of his reliance on his skill with a spear, that being his famed snake spear, which was his usual weapon of choice in both history and the book, and has been his staple weapon since the first Dynasty Warriors game. He was also extremely loyal to Liu Bei in both iterations, but again, almost to a fault, as Zhang Fei would feel heavily offended to those who didn't show Liu Bei respect. His love of alcohol wasn't dramatized either, as he was said to have loved wine so much that he had fallen for a ploy by Lu Bu's strategist Chang Gong to ingest gifted wine to make it harder for Zhang Fei to defend Shapi Castle. Zhang Fei, though, specifically during his times as a general for Shu Han, was said in many biographies, most notably Chen Shousang Guoji, and historical letters from both Cheng Yu and Liu Bei, to have been a brash and heartless man who would punish his own men with extreme floggings or worse for the littlest of mistakes. In fact, one of his more infamous actions was the abduction of Xiahou Yuan's niece, Xiahou Zhe, while she was working in the field. She was only 13 years old during her time of abduction, contrary to her depiction in Dynasty Warriors 9, and ended up bearing two of Zhang Fei's children nearly years later. Yikes! As for Zhang Fei's accomplishments, his most speculated one being his famous stand on the Changban Bridge was surprisingly accurate. It was said that because of the positioning of the sun, the soldiers of Cao Cao believed Zhang Fei to be a demon due to his bulky feature and the fact that the setting sun behind Zhang Fei give him an almost pitch-black face, which is why some paintings of Zhang Fei, as well as many depictions of him in the Peking operas, would have his face painted black. Another factor was that Zhang Fei had his men kick up dust in the air to make it appear as if he had a large army waiting to attack, enticing even more fear in Cao Cao's men. For some of the more fictional accomplishments, these were in Zhang Fei's fights against Lu Bu at Hulao Gate and Ma Chao at Jiangmeng Gate. In the Romance of the Three Kingdoms at the Battle of Hulao Gate, it is said that Zhang Fei initially challenged Lu Bu in a duel where Zhang Fei would struggle against the powerful warrior before he was given aid by Guan Yu and Liu Bei, the three brothers eventually pushing back Lu Bu, forcing him to retreat. This was untrue, as it was the army of Sun Jian that led the forefront assault and had Lu Bu retreat from his position. As for Zhang Fei's fight against Ma Chao, it was said in Romance of the Three Kingdoms that Zhang Lu engaged Liu Bei's forces while Liu Bei was under Liu Zhang's protection. It was at the Battle of Jiangmeng Gate where Zhang Fei met with then officer of Zhang Lu, Ma Chao, who would later become a Shu officer and one of the Five Tiger generals. Zhang Fei and Ma Chao would engage in a duel with each other, where Zhang Fei would beat Ma Chao back multiple times until Ma Chao eventually surrendered to Liu Bei. This was due to how humble Zhang Fei was to Ma Chao, despite Zhang Fei having multiple times to kill Ma Chao from their duels. Zhang Fei merely didn't because he was impressed by Ma Chao's strength and was overjoyed at Ma Chao's surrender. However, this also wasn't true, as instead Ma Chao was feeling underappreciated by Zhang Lu and heard of Liu Bei's exploits and his campaign in Jing, surrendering to Liu Bei and even aiding in the Yi campaign, a point in the game itself that was pretty accurate in Dynasty Warriors 9. But despite some of Zhang Fei's famed duels in the Romance of the Three Kingdoms story being fictional, as well as his blunders to his drunken habits or quick-tempered reactions, he was still a loyal and dependable officer under his sworn brother and achieved many military accomplishments to help establish one of the famed Three Kingdoms, Shu Han. And despite his more barbaric nature during history, Romance of the Three Kingdoms and Dynasty Warriors' alternate depiction of the wine-loving warrior was definitely something that stuck with people who have indulged in either of the mediums, as he left his mark as one of the first warriors of Shu to ever enter into the Musou archives. So with that, I conclude the second episode of my analysis series. I hope you all enjoyed what I was able to share with you all, and I hope you all learned something about the warrior of topic in this video. So until then, I will see you all in the next project. Later, guys!